Hi, fellow tea lovers. Settle in, because we've got a story. I'm Nell.
And I'm Rose, and today we're bringing you the tea.
Across era.
So what got me thinking about this week's topic was a fun run to World Market. It's kind of one of my happy places. I really like unfamiliar snacks and a large tea selection.
Yes.
And so wandering around, and I see this tea. It's a rose lemonade, Taylor's of Harrogate. It's delicious. I will feed you some later. I ended up feeding you some of the purple tea first.
I didn't even look at the pink tea.
Yeah, I know. I kind of glanced over it because I was sort of being secretive.
Oh, that's okay.
But it looked really nice anyway. And Taylor's, I have a real fondness for because they're based at least partially out of York. That's where it's not where their headquarters are, I think, because it's Taylor's of Harrogate. But it's really one of the big bases. And I didn't really realize that they were a big deal when I was living there. I mean, like it's a fancy tea shop, hands down. You know, it's pricey, but I used to treat myself. I actually got more coffee there than I did tea. But I'd go and get Turkish ground coffee, and then I could lure people down from 6 flights of stairs with the smell of the coffee brewing. It was kind of fun. But yeah, I'd go and treat myself there, and it was just like a really sweet memory. So I pick it up, and then I read the little appointment thing here. It's by appointment to His Royal Highness Prince of Wales, suppliers of beverages, Taylor's of Harrogate, North Yorkshire.
Wow.
Yeah, so by appointment of His Royal Highness, that feels like a big deal. That makes you feel a little fancier about the thing that you're holding.
Definitely.
It made me really interested, particularly because I just saw an article very recently about Charles and Camilla redoing their list of royal warrants, which is by appointment of.
Which means...
So what that means now is that you can tell everybody that you are a supplier of goods to the royal household.
Oh. So
it's not just a mark of approval and, you got somebody's favor or you gave them freebies and they free advertised for you. It's actually a little bit more structured. Really got me interested because we're at a kind of odd shift point right now. You know, most of our adult lives, everything was not everything as it turns out. Most things were by appointment of Her Royal Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. It feels like a very ancient thing. You know, by appointment of the royal household, that's something that just feels like fairy tale-like. Did you ever watch 10th Kingdom?
I do not think so.
Super fun, I feel like early 2000s miniseries that was fairy tale based. It was one of those retellings where the world that the Grimm brothers created was real and they actually just got stuck here for a while kind of deal.
Okay.
And there's this scene where, the evil queen shows up in an apple orchard and the farmer is immediately, can we say that we sell our apples by appointment of the queen? Doesn't work out great for them. Cannot recommend that more highly. It's I don't even know if anybody's streaming it. I'm a cretin. I have DVDs. I like knowing where my media is.
I have some DVDs.
Yeah.
I don't have a DVD player.
We
But...
got the little portable for camping, and it
smart.
turns out to actually be amazing for blackouts and just general.
Oh, sure, okay.
But it feels like an influencer-like relationship, at least in the modern sense. Like, these guys rubbed up against the right people and they get to put the fancy label. But it's actually a lot more regimented than I realized. In order to apply for a royal warrant, you have to have provided goods or services to the royal household for 5 out of the most recent 7 years.
Okay.
Before you're allowed to apply. And one thing that I read said, well, it's the most honest endorsement you can get. They actually have to like the product. And I think it's probably a little bit in between those two things, not pure advertising, but you can actually attach a little bit of value to it because this person whose opinion you clearly respect, because you wouldn't pick up the thing, genuinely had to use it for a reasonable amount of time before it was even an option.
Okay.
So, yeah. So I was interested in how far back this went. And particularly, it was sort of like, how long has Taylor's of Harrogate been a royal warrant holder? Since 2009.
Oh, wow.
They had the royal warrant since 2009, and I encountered them in 2011.
That was like right in the height.
It was like brand new, right? That threw me a lot. But so, Charles and Camilla have just reviewed their list of royal warrants, and it's interesting the things that have dropped off and the things that are being added. Like, apparently there was a very large push for being environmentally friendly businesses. There were a couple of interviews with factories that had to sort of like refurb before they would feel comfortable about their warrants. This is a particularly cool and interesting moment because once a monarch passes, it does void their warrants, but the people are still allowed to use them for 2 years, which we are fast running up to. So I looked it up, and you can still get your run-of-the-mill, brought it for work, English black tea Twinnings that says by appointment of Her Royal Highness Elizabeth II. This is the last year that's actually going to be possible.
That's so wild.
She's like, I'm going on a tea hunt. Yeah, so royal warrants grew out of charters. The earliest charters in England were issued to the Weavers Guild in 1155.
Okay.
But those are basically just you're allowed to operate at a certain level. You have to have the royal permission to really guarantee the quality. It was almost the only form of quality control.
Wow.
In a time when you don't have mass media who you trust is wholly based on your own personal experience, and you don't really end up moving that far around.
True.
But the word of the king carries a huge amount of weight and is going to have consequences for someone if they have crappy product.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So in the 15th century, it becomes a little bit more formalized, and the charters kind of become the warrant system. And it's not just the king that is issuing these warrants. Like, there's several warrant issuing authorities. Like, they have to have actually had an economic relationship, actually, in terms of the modern requirements.
Okay.
They can't just give stuff to the royal family, which honestly I think lends a little bit to the quality control thing.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
You have to have actually exchanged money to even have a chance.
No, I like that.
Yeah, actually.
I like that.
It makes a thing feel ancient because they have the right to put that royal seal on it. Even though, like Taylors of Harrogate, they've been around since 1886. They were actually Betty's Tea Rooms, which is sort of like the front face of Taylor's. It's so much fun. It's beautiful. The decor was based on one of the luxury liners, one of the Mary.
That's so cool.
But yeah, so it was supposed to feel like a Titanic. They were actually a really big hangout during World War II for
cool.
soldiers that were stationed in York. It's the epitome of home and what you're fighting for, and so it's a very warm feeling environment. That's treat number 2 for me on terrible days. If I had a lot of work to do, I would go and hole up in a corner table and just get a really huge plate of pastries and a bunch of tea and just knock it out, which I don't think they probably appreciated me for it. Nobody kicked me out or even really eyeballed me. So I can't have been the only one.
I'm sorry. I was just reading on Reddit in Casual UK, and they were talking about how British people are so polite that they'll never say anything to you.
It really works to the advantage of a brash American that doesn't know shit.
There were things like that in the comments. Somebody said, I was on the tube or whatever the other day, and an American lady turned around and yelled at someone, "Hey, don't you have headphones?" And I silently applauded her, and I'm like, that seems so normal to us.
I experienced a lot of just really kind people. I used to go out to this Italian place that was kind of like Olive Garden-esque, and I really loved their bolognese. So the same thing. I was working all the time. I basically always had my notebook with me. So
yeah.
Just, so I'd buy myself a dinner and just continue on. And this one waitress multiple times would come up and have sort of unnecessarily extended conversations, offer me magazines. Like, she clearly really pitied my loneliness. Like, no, sorry, brief interlude for educational purposes.
You're really, really, really making people want to sign up for exchange type programs right now.
It was a whole lot of fun. It's less fun when you realize that you've mistaken a word for underpants. It goes both ways. When you have a retail job in the U.S. and you get in trouble if a customer walks in and you don't immediately just smother them with "hi," and that's just your training. That's considered rude if you go work in retail in other places.
That's why our former place of employment had such different trainings for us and them.
Yes, yeah, because I actually got in trouble there because it was considered off-putting. It was just like, we really need you to stop yelling at every customer that comes in. And like, I'm sorry, apparently it's wired really hard. I'm just trying.
Do you ask them how they're doing?
Hi, how's it going? Every time.
I also saw someone on Reddit who said, how do you answer when Americans ask you how you are?
Doing great, thanks.
Yeah, I was like just thinking, unless your life is like really bad, you just say, good, thank you. And if it's really bad, you're just supposed to say, it's been tough, but I'm getting through it.
Trucking along has been a weird favorite of mine.
I'm still here.
It crosses generations. People tend to giggle at it, because I don't know how old the people that I speak to are very often. Sometimes you can tell. And so, I was talking about the heraldry involved. It feels really ancient.
Yes.
When I noticed the royal, seal on everything, which is the Prince of Wales seal, you take a look at it, it's 3 feathers.
Is this still his seal now that he's got a title change?
Nope. Okay. That's still the heraldry of the Prince of Wales. So that is William's now.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh.
The first kind of use of that heraldry, it was funny because it was somebody that we talked about a couple of episodes ago, Edward the Black Prince of Wales.
Oh, Edward.
Poor dear, Sir Edward.
Yeah, I just rewatched A Knight's Tale after we talked about that, and I'm just going to think about him in there.
It's a really beautiful portrayal. It's sort of like the best you could hope for the trope. It's probably not true, but
no, probably
well
not.
Done, and I'd wear the coat.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so the story, which may or may not, probably isn't true, about the ostrich feathers is during the Battle of Crécy, there was a famous Bavarian king who was the opposing side to Edward, and he was blind, but he was considered the most brave commander of his time, and so he insists on being hauled out onto the battlefield, even though he can't see, and of course that doesn't go well. And
no.
Don't be blind in a melee. I'm really sorry about that. It's just not a good idea. Just other hobbies. But so, after he's killed, Edward comes up and grabs the ostrich feathers out of his helmet. And so it was supposed to be like a victorious symbol of the defeat at Crécy. That's maybe the story, but it's also equally possible that his mother was Philippa of Hainaut, which is a German territory, and that particular line, their heir apparent, Ostrava, very easily translates into ostrich.
Okay.
And so it could have been a tribute to his mom.
Okay.
Which, side note, her marriage with Edward III, when you think about those idealized, like in the movies, medieval romances.
Oh, how cute.
Of course, he had a mistress for a very long time, but, medieval.
I think it was like, not that I'm condoning it at all, but I feel like it was like almost like a job requirement than just like the list of jobs it takes to run a royal kingdom. Yeah,
right. Mistress is just on the list with like laundress and, and
chef.
Maid, chef. Make sure we get a good mistress at this place.
Yeah.
You can't lay modern morals on a historical problem.
I was looking up historical mistresses and I got a little annoyed with some of the ages, but again,
different standards, not excusing, but not exactly.
Still creepy when they're 12.
Oh my goodness, yes. Yeah. But anyway, so it's also possible that it was a tribute to his mother, who, as Countess of Hainaut, the heir apparent of that line was traditionally titled the Count of Ostravent, which... so it could have been like a heraldic pun, which I love how often those exist.
I hope so.
Like, a lot of times in heraldry, you do have like, we have this animal rampant because it represents the pride and solidity of our family, and we have this animal on the other side which represents how big our dicks are. They're equally present. If you see a squirrel in most medieval heraldry, like particularly on anything associated with a single man, it's kind of synonymous with I crack nuts.
Wow.
I'm a ball buster.
Didn't hear that, but my mouth fell open. Okay.
Squirrels are their own incredible episode.
Right?
We'll have to do. That was that.
Okay.
Yeah. As we were saying at the beginning of the episode, this landscape is actually changing all the time, really. It starts in the 15th century to really become codified. You have real requirements. It's not until Queen Victoria that they actually have an association of royal warrant holders.
Okay.
Is kind of similar to the effect of the guild systems in terms of knowing where your product is coming from, knowing that something has a particular standard. I mean, in an era where people are perfectly fine, sometimes putting sawdust in your bread instead of flour, because then it weighs right.
Ew.
You don't really want that happening if you can prevent it. So it's a system that's easily supportable.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it starts morphing over time in Victoria's era, because you still have those people, particularly when you're ramping up industry, who are doing really whatever you want. The regulations are starting to exist, but they are by no means effective. And so having the ability to stamp this ancient-looking symbol on your product and say, hey, if you have a problem with my product, go talk to the Queen.
Yes.
Yeah. And, as we get to where we are, it's its own tourist draw. It's associated with the culture of a place that isn't yours, you don't know as well, but you really appreciate. And it brings a smile. When you go to those places, you're going to buy the one that's been endorsed by the Prince of Wales.
You better believe it.
If you're at home.
Yeah. I'm like, wait, I don't like the Prince of Wales. It's a new one.
It's not. Wait. That's the thing. It's not associated.
Yeah.
It's associated with the brand. I mean, and royalty is a brand that has been a thing since royalty existed. It just has different effects.
True.
It's less now about knowing that your product is quality. I mean, that's purportedly the point. But it's more about the prestige of being associated with the royal family, and people bite on it all the time. Now, this is not to denigrate any tea brand in particular. I have my tea opinions, but you know what? I'll try anything. And I love Harney & Sons. If you look in my cabinet, it's actually mostly empty that. Because I save the tins because they're beautiful.
Yeah.
But, it's like any Barnes & Noble or Target. That's where you're getting it. But if you look at their older tins, it has heraldry on it. It doesn't have any heraldry that is associated with anything in particular, but it has that vibe.
It does. I was looking to read who it says, and it just says fine teas.
Yep, because they can't claim anything. They haven't been put on anybody's list. But that imagery speaks quality. It does. Yeah. Now, and you can see them moving away from it, though, because that's an older tin that we have here. This is a tin that I bought on the same trip that brought us all to this place. And this is their brand new packaging, which has that sort of
regal
vintage style, but it no longer looks heraldry based.
No, it does not.
It's very filigreed, still got some fleur-de-lis action going on here, but it's less like it's trying to imitate anything, and it's becoming kind of more of its own thing.
And every single thing about this package is very attractive. That's why I didn't even look at the pink tea. I saw this and I was like, that's the one I want. That's the one I want.
She walked in today and I said, all right, I'm not telling you what the episode's about, but we need to make you a cup of tea.
And I picked the indigo punch.
Which, the purple is just spectacular, I have to say.
Yes, it is.
So the number of things that have been endorsed was kind of surprising. I was looking at the lists because they're just publishing the new lists now, and I didn't clock it at first, but it's 2024, and so all of Queen Elizabeth's warrants are now legally expiring. Which I'm not sure what that means for like retail on the ground. Like, does somebody get a letter at the World Market in any suburb anywhere saying, please destroy all these packages, and then maybe just never explain why, just say that's out of date?
That's probably the version of the letter by the time it got to like their district manager.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My mission in the next little while is to find as many Elizabeth stamped products as I can, only because it's just historically interesting. We don't really live through this turnover very often. We're probably going to get it a little bit more often. Apologies, but age happens.
Yeah.
But Elizabeth was just such a very standard part of our lives.
Yes.
It was just the Queen of England. That's the thing.
Yes.
That kind of change doesn't happen very often. And she was, especially as an older lady, politics aside, and there's very, very much pros and cons, just like she was kind of a spectacular grand figure. It's just, those are aspirations. I don't know if you've ever seen How to Irritate People.
Do not think so.
It's a Monty Python. It was actually pre-Monty Python, but it was a bunch of the guys.
Okay.
And it was just, little sketch things, but they had, and I'm sure this isn't unique to them, it's just where I encountered it. They had this classification of old lady called the Pepper Pot. And you have a picture in your head already.
Yep,
I mean, it's perfect. But the pillbox hat and all. And I thought she was just like, she was the Grandmaster Pepper Pot. One of the endorsements that she had was Vauxhall, which was considered, it's a very, very, very British, like kind of people's car brand. It's a little bit like the Honda
Okay.
is here. Everybody's, grand had one. I guess maybe less of a Honda, more of like a Lincoln, probably. Everybody kind of had it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I was like, yeah. And it was considered kind of too American looking in the 80s. Their wagon series, the Cresta wagons, they look like the Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
It's that kind of just angles and curves and spaceships, and I can fit everything in the back. And I thought it was just the funniest image of all of these, like, the fancy gets, people, that wagon is just so American, vulgar and crass, and meanwhile their queen is like, corgis, we ride at dawn. Do you know how many dogs I can fit in here?
Yes. Every grandchild on my side of the family, on my mom's side, I think probably at some point we all drove a car my grandparents had. I feel like it might have been was it a Buick LeSabre? I can't remember exactly, but it was about as long as this room.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say, 13, 14 feet long.
Both cars.
And it was, I would say, 8 feet wide?
Like, basically, we could live here for a while.
Yes.
And move back into the house.
Like, everybody drove it. Mm-hmm. One time when I was pregnant, my kid's dad was driving it, and somebody hit them, and nothing happened. You could take a speed bump at 55 miles per hour and not feel it. And one time, it was parked when we did this. We decided to see how many people we could put in it. And seriously, it was like 17. It was the most comfortable car ever.
I was in college. One of my roommates had a 1960 Bel Air that she had fixed up herself, and it was beautiful. And we were driving to a party one night, and she backed up into one of those concrete bases of those big streetlights.
Yeah.
Took a chunk out of the concrete, did not scratch the car.
I mean, that seems accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we drove for like 2 hours to a party that ultimately was not worth the drive.
That happened a lot in college.
Oh, yeah. And the drive is sort of, if you didn't have fun on the drive, then you've missed the fun part of the evening.
Agree.
Mm-hmm. Good.
So what happens to, like, if I had a royal appointment and then it goes away and I can't put it on my product packaging or say that anymore?
That depends a lot on...
Okay, yeah, that was
a dicey thing. Because some people, they get warrants incorporated into their logo, where you have guaranteed yourself a rebrand now in the case of either somebody dying or just no longer liking your product.
Yeah.
So you can do, like, a lot like the Taylor's packaging, they just have it kind of up above their actual logo. And I think that's probably what a lot of people do because of those reasons.
Okay.
But yeah, it can be a kick in the pants if you lose it.
Right.
I mean, you can also just decline to reapply, which is what Voxel ended up doing. So they just decided not to reapply because they hadn't been.
There's a scene, no spoilers because it's been out for a few years now, and I don't think you're going to watch it. There's a scene in the first season of Bridgerton where Daphne and the Duke are married and they go back and they go out. It's like a festival day or something, I don't know. And there's a pig judging contest, I think. I could be mixing my animals up. Mm-hmm. But in the end, she's like, I can't really decide between either one because I don't want to like make a bad impression on one when they lose with I'm the new Duchess. Mm-hmm. And so she declares both of them. And then over the course of the next few days, she starts to notice something's off. And finally the lady in the duchy goes, well, by not choosing one, they didn't get their contract with the Duke's house, whatever that's called.
Household manager.
Yeah. So, that was a problem, not only for their pocketbooks, but also, so where did the people decide?
Right.
I mean, obviously, you could still support your friend who didn't win, but...
You're much more likely to get much more business because somebody in power endorsed you.
Exactly. If you're traveling through town, you see that, like, he takes his food up to the Duke's house. Cool, I should buy my lunch here.
Yeah, right.
That's it. Yeah. That's in there. That made me think of that. It is a lot like the modern influencer. And I mean, a current influencer, when I say that word, I think of, like, media, particularly social media, but also, like, back in the days of 17 magazines, models were holding it. Mm-hmm. They started rolling actresses into the magazines and on the covers.
Like that chick feels.
Exactly. Yeah. Do you know how many people in my 9th grade class had Rachel's haircut?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Some of those girls had naturally curly hair, and they went and put relaxers in their hair so they could get that haircut.
I had stick straight hair and used the same chemicals to try and make it curly.
There we go.
I'll do it.
Yeah, and maybe it's because I'm older, but just because somebody is like, I love using this brand of lotion, that does not have any impact on me.
Right, and it used to have a ton of impact. It's interesting the things that create trust in a brand and how that shifts. It's almost never about the product itself.
No.
Hopefully it works. That's the dream, but that's not why you bought it.
There is someone I like who I really like how he dresses now. I think he's always very about his fashion. It's rapper Gunna. And lately I've just been seeing him in these outfits, and they're not really anything I'm gonna wear. But man, I'm like looking up the boots and I'm like, okay, what else does this brand have? It's out of my price range generally at this point in time. But there's still things I'm influenced by when someone I like, even if it's like Judy Blume. If Judy Blume said this is the best kind of like, I don't know, book duster, you better believe I would have it. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting how that carries over time. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you want us to talk about next.